Have you ever laid down at night completely exhausted after a long day, only to discover that the moment your head touches the pillow, something suddenly feels different? A strange pressure appears where there was none just minutes before. A sensation in your chest becomes impossible to ignore. Your body feels tired, but somehow it refuses to fully settle. You shift once, then twice, searching for a position that feels right. And that's when many people begin noticing something they can't quite explain. What's strange is that these sensations rarely show up while you're busy during the day. They don't usually appear when you're walking, talking, or focused on something else. Instead, they seem to emerge when everything around you finally becomes quiet, when the lights go off and there are no distractions left. You become aware of every sensation, every movement, every subtle discomfort. You've probably noticed moments when your body suddenly feels more alert than it should, and this is where things start becoming surprisingly interesting. For years, most people assumed these experiences were simply part of getting older. Others blamed stress, anxiety, or sleeping in the wrong position. But neurologists have started paying closer attention to a different possibility, a possibility that may explain why certain bedtime habits quietly keep the brain more active at night. Not because something is wrong with you, not because your body has forgotten how to sleep, but because of something most people never realize is happening until it begins affecting them directly. Maybe for you, it starts as a subtle feeling that something isn't quite right. Not painful enough to be alarming, not obvious enough to explain, just a lingering sense that your body refuses to fully relax. You settle into bed expecting comfort and relief, yet within minutes, a strange restlessness begins to build, almost as if your body is trying to tell you something, even when you can't identify exactly what that something is. Sometimes the sensation feels like pressure deep inside the chest, not sharp, not intense, just noticeable enough to keep drawing your attention back to it. You try to ignore it and focus on sleeping, but the more you notice it, the harder it becomes to dismiss. Think about how many times you've experienced this exact situation, and how often it seems to appear without any clear explanation. For others, the sensation shows up differently. You suddenly become aware of your heartbeat, not because it's racing out of control, but because it feels unusually present in the silence of the night. A sensation that may have been there all along, yet somehow becomes impossible to ignore once everything else quiets down. Most people assume this means something is wrong, but here's the thing, that assumption may not be accurate at all. Then there are the constant adjustments. You turn to one side, hoping to feel comfortable. A few minutes later, something feels off again, so you switch positions. You adjust the pillow beneath your head, pull the blanket closer, push it away moments later, and somehow the search for comfort continues much longer than expected. At the same time, your mind remains active in a very unusual way, not necessarily worried, not necessarily stressed, just unable to fully settle into that effortless state that precedes sleep. Thoughts seem to drift in and out without purpose. Your awareness remains switched on, and even when your eyes are closed, part of you still feels awake. You've probably noticed this more times than you can count. What makes this so confusing is that most people treat these experiences as separate problems. The pressure feels unrelated to the restlessness. The restlessness feels unrelated to the position changes. The position changes feel unrelated to the active mind. But what if all of these sensations were connected by the same hidden process? What if they were actually different expressions of a single response happening inside the body? And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn that most people never see coming. This is where many people become frustrated, because the advice that seems to work perfectly for one person often fails completely for another. Someone says sleeping on their left side changed everything. Another person tries the exact same thing and feels even worse. One person experiences immediate relief, another notices more pressure, more awareness, and more discomfort. When the results are so different, confusion becomes almost inevitable, and most people stop looking any deeper. You have probably seen this happen yourself. Maybe you've experimented with different sleeping positions over the years. One night, a position feels surprisingly comfortable. The next night, that same position suddenly feels wrong. The support that seemed helpful yesterday no longer feels helpful today. Your body reacts differently even when nothing appears to have changed, and that inconsistency makes it difficult to trust what you're feeling. Most people miss how important that detail actually is. For some individuals, sleeping on one side creates a sense of ease. Breathing feels smoother, pressure seems reduced, the body settles more quickly, sleep arrives with less effort, everything appears to move in the right direction. But then someone else experiences the exact opposite response, and that's where the usual explanations start falling apart. The same contradiction appears with sleeping flat on the back. For some people, it feels stable and supportive. For others, it creates a subtle awareness they can't ignore, a sensation that something feels slightly off, not dangerous, not dramatic, just enough to keep the body from fully letting go. And the brain notices that difference more than most people realize. When experiences vary this much, it's easy to assume there must be multiple unrelated causes. One explanation for pressure, another explanation for restlessness, a different explanation for constant repositioning, and yet another explanation for why sleep sometimes feels lighter than it should. At first glance, that conclusion seems logical. After all, the symptoms don't always look the same. But here's the thing that neurologists have started paying closer attention to. What if the differences are only happening on the surface? What if the pressure, the discomfort, the position changes, and the alertness are all being influenced by the same underlying response, a response that simply expresses itself differently from one person to the next? That possibility would explain why the symptoms appear different while still following similar patterns, and it would explain why so many people feel like they're dealing with a mystery that never fully makes sense. Because once researchers began looking beneath the symptoms themselves, they started noticing something that changes the entire conversation. I'm Dr. William Harris, a sleep specialist, and for years I've worked with adults who described remarkably similar experiences during the night. Many arrived convinced that what they were feeling was completely random. Some believed it was simply another unavoidable part of getting older. Others assumed stress was the only explanation, and a surprising number of people worried they were imagining the entire thing. Yet the more closely these experiences were examined, the more a very specific pattern began to emerge. What caught my attention wasn't a single symptom, it was the way different symptoms kept appearing together. People from different backgrounds described similar sensations using different words. One person talked about pressure, another described restlessness, someone else focused on an unusual awareness of their body after lying down. At first, these complaints seemed unrelated, but over time, the similarities became impossible to dismiss. Many of these individuals had already tried the usual recommendations. They improved their sleep routines, they adjusted room temperature, they changed pillows, mattresses, and bedtime schedules. Some even followed every piece of conventional sleep advice they could find. Yet the strange nighttime sensations continued showing up, and that raised an important question that few people were asking. Why would the same experiences persist despite so many different solutions? The answer didn't appear all at once. It revealed itself gradually through repeated observations. Again and again, people described the same sequence of events. They felt tired throughout the day, they looked forward to finally resting. Then shortly after lying down, something shifted. Their awareness increased, their body reacted, and sleep became more complicated than it should have been. What's particularly interesting is how predictable this pattern eventually became. Once you know what to look for, the signs often appear long before a person realizes they're connected. The pressure, the repositioning, the subtle alertness, the feeling that the body isn't completely settling. These experiences tend to follow a recognizable rhythm, and most people never realize they're seeing the same process unfold repeatedly. Once you notice this pattern, it's difficult to ignore, because what appears random on the surface often turns out to follow a deeper logic underneath, a logic that has less to do with weakness, aging, or personal failure than most people assume. And the more researchers have explored this possibility, the more evidence has pointed towards something happening beneath conscious awareness, something the body may be responding to automatically night after night. And understanding that hidden response changes how we look at the entire problem. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing these nighttime experiences happen for no reason. A strange sensation appears, and they assume their body is acting unpredictably. A wave of discomfort arrives, and they blame bad luck. The pressure comes and goes, seemingly without explanation. The restlessness appears out of nowhere. And over time, many people start accepting these experiences as normal. But what if they aren't random at all? What if your body is responding exactly the way it was designed to respond? Think about how the body communicates during the day. Hunger signals tell you when to eat. Thirst reminds you to drink. Pain alerts you when something requires attention. Your body is constantly sending information. Most of the time, those messages are easy to recognize. At night, however, the signals can become far more subtle, and that's where many people begin misinterpreting what they're experiencing. A feeling of pressure may not simply be pressure. The urge to reposition may not be just a habit. That unusual awareness of your heartbeat may not be random either. These sensations often appear disconnected because they arrive in different forms, yet the body rarely creates sensations without a purpose. Even small reactions can carry important information. The challenge is that most people focus on the sensation itself. They never stop to ask why the sensation appeared in the first place. In many cases, the body is attempting to communicate that something doesn't feel quite right. Not necessarily dangerous, not necessarily urgent, just different enough to capture attention. And once attention shifts toward that sensation, awareness increases. The sensation feels stronger, the body reacts further, and a cycle begins that can quietly interfere with the ability to settle into sleep. Most people never realize this process is unfolding.
Instead, they blame aging, or stress, or a mattress that isn't comfortable enough, or a pillow that needs replacing. While those factors can certainly influence sleep, they often fail to explain the entire picture. Because beneath the discomfort, beneath the repositioning, and beneath the alertness, another process may already be taking place. A process that remains largely invisible until someone knows where to look. And this is where the story becomes far more interesting, because the sensations themselves may not be the actual problem. They may simply be the visible signs of something happening deeper beneath the surface, something that influences how the body responds after you lie down, something that may explain why the same patterns keep appearing night after night. And once researchers began exploring this hidden layer, they started uncovering a mechanism that connects many of these seemingly unrelated experiences together. To better understand what's happening, it helps to give this pattern a name. I call it a night mismatch. A night mismatch occurs when your body and your sleeping position stop working together as efficiently as they should. Not because anything is seriously wrong, not because your body is failing, but because certain conditions create a subtle imbalance that your system immediately notices. And that small imbalance may be far more important than most people realize. Think about how sensitive the body becomes once you lie down. Small changes that go unnoticed during the day can suddenly become much more apparent. Pressure shifts, breathing patterns change, internal sensations become easier to detect. Your body starts gathering information from multiple sources at once. Most of this process happens automatically, and much of it occurs below conscious awareness.
When everything feels aligned, the body gradually relaxes into sleep. Signals quiet down, awareness decreases, comfort increases. The transition feels natural, almost effortless. But when a night mismatch occurs, that process can be interrupted in subtle ways. And this is where an important response may begin to appear. I call this response the body flip signal. The body flip signal is not something you consciously choose. It's an internal reaction designed to encourage movement and adjustment. The body senses that something feels slightly off, not dangerous, not urgent, just different enough to trigger a response. And that response often appears long before you fully understand why. Sometimes the body flip signal feels like discomfort. Sometimes it shows up as pressure that seems difficult to explain. Other times it appears as a sudden urge to change positions. You shift your shoulders, you move your legs, you roll onto your side, you adjust the pillow beneath your head. And often these movements happen so naturally that you never question them. What makes this particularly interesting is that most people never realize the body flip signal may be influencing them throughout the night. They assume every movement is random, every adjustment is a habit, every sensation is unrelated. But once you begin viewing these experiences through the lens of a night mismatch, a different picture starts to emerge, because the body flip signal may be only one piece of a much larger process taking place beneath the surface. And what that process affects next surprises many people when they first discover it. Once you understand the idea of a night mismatch, many seemingly unrelated experiences begin to make a little more sense. Not because every symptom has the same cause, but because the body often responds to subtle imbalances in surprisingly similar ways. What feels like several different problems may actually be connected by a common response. And this is why so many people describe nearly identical nighttime experiences, even when they believe their situations are completely different. Most people never realize these patterns are connected. For some individuals, the first sign is a mild reflux sensation. Nothing severe, just enough to create awareness, a feeling that something isn't settling as smoothly as it should. Others notice pressure somewhere in the chest area, not necessarily painful, just present enough to keep drawing attention back to it. And once attention locks on to a sensation, the experience often becomes much harder to ignore. Others experience discomfort that seems isolated to one side of the body, a shoulder that suddenly feels awkward, a hip that feels unusually noticeable, a position that initially feels comfortable but quickly becomes irritating. You adjust once and feel temporary relief, then the sensation gradually returns, so you reposition again, and the cycle quietly repeats itself throughout the night. Many people also describe an unusual feeling when they breathe, not shortness of breath, not a medical emergency, just a subtle sense that a deep breath never feels completely satisfying, as if something is preventing the body from reaching a state of full ease. The sensation may come and go, yet once it's noticed, awareness tends to remain focused on it, and that awareness can make relaxation more difficult. This is where the body flip signal becomes especially important, because the body often detects these subtle mismatches before the conscious mind recognizes them. Long before you consciously decide to move, your system may already be responding. Tiny adjustments begin, muscles subtly engage, awareness increases, the urge to reposition grows stronger, and most people never realize this process may have started several minutes earlier.
The interesting part is that these physical sensations may only represent the visible layer of what's occurring. The pressure, the repositioning, the discomfort, the awareness, the feeling that something is slightly off. All of these may be signs of a deeper response unfolding beneath the surface. Because once the body flip signal becomes active, another process may begin influencing the brain itself. And that's where the story becomes even more surprising. What makes this experience so frustrating is that the natural response often seems like the right one. You try harder to relax, you search for a better position, you focus on becoming more comfortable, you tell yourself to stop thinking about it, you attempt to settle down and let sleep happen naturally. Yet somehow the process feels as though it keeps slipping further away, and that's where many people begin feeling trapped in a cycle they don't fully understand. The more attention you give the sensation, the more noticeable it can become. A small discomfort suddenly feels larger. A minor pressure becomes harder to ignore. A subtle urge to move starts demanding action. You become increasingly aware of your body, increasingly aware of your position, increasingly aware of every sensation that would normally fade into the background, and sleep begins moving further out of reach. Many people spend a surprising amount of time searching for the perfect sleeping position. They adjust the pillow, they change sides, they stretch their legs, they rearrange the blanket. For a few moments, everything feels better. Then gradually something feels off again, and the search starts all over from the beginning. What's interesting is that these adjustments often provide temporary relief. That relief feels encouraging. It creates the impression that the problem has been solved. But then the sensation returns, the discomfort reappears, the urge to move comes back, and another adjustment follows. Most people never realize how many times this sequence may repeat throughout a single night. The pattern becomes so familiar that it feels normal. As this process continues, sleep can become lighter and more fragmented. You may not remember every awakening. You may not remember every repositioning, yet your body experiences them anyway. The result is often a night that feels complete on paper, but somehow leaves you feeling less restored in the morning. You wake up wondering why you're still tired, even though you spent enough hours in bed. Think about how many nights this may have been happening without your awareness. Think about how many times your body may have been responding automatically while you remained asleep. Most people never connect their daytime fatigue to these subtle nighttime interruptions. They assume aging is responsible, or stress, or simple bad luck. But if the body flip signal continues repeating night after night, month after month, and even year after year, its effects may extend much further than most people imagine. And that leads to an even more important question researchers have started asking. And this is exactly why some people eventually begin searching for ways to help their body calm this response naturally. Not because they want to force themselves to sleep, not because they want to feel sedated, and not because they're looking for a quick fix. What they're really looking for is support. Something that works with the body's natural nighttime processes, something that helps reduce the constant need for adjustment and repositioning, and that's where the conversation starts becoming very interesting. Over the past few years, more attention has been given to nighttime support approaches that focus on helping the body settle more comfortably. The goal is not to shut the brain down. The goal is not to overpower the body's signals. Instead, the focus is on supporting healthy nighttime balance, helping the body feel more aligned, helping internal responses become less disruptive, and creating conditions that may allow sleep to happen more naturally, a subtle difference that many people overlook. Some doctor-approved nighttime support formulas have been developed with this exact philosophy in mind. Rather than fighting the body's responses, they aim to support the systems involved in relaxation and recovery. The idea is simple. When the body feels more balanced, it may become less likely to trigger unnecessary adjustments, less likely to amplify minor discomforts, and less likely to keep drawing attention towards sensations that interfere with rest. At least, that's the theory many people have become interested in exploring. What's particularly interesting is that many people aren't using these formulas because they struggle to fall asleep. They're using them because they want better quality sleep. They want fewer interruptions, less repositioning, less nighttime awareness, and a greater sense of restoration in the morning. Because as we've discussed, the challenge isn't always about falling asleep. Sometimes it's about staying comfortable enough for sleep to continue uninterrupted. As a result, more adults have started incorporating these types of nighttime support options into their evening routines, not as a replacement for healthy sleep habits, but as an additional layer of support, especially when they suspect their body may be reacting to subtle nighttime imbalances. If you're curious about some of the options people have been exploring, you'll find additional information in the pinned comment below. Many viewers choose to review the information and decide for themselves. But that still doesn't explain the most important piece of the puzzle.
Because even if the body flip signal becomes quieter, even if the nighttime adjustments become less frequent, even if sleep starts feeling more comfortable, there's still one question that remains unanswered. Why does a night mismatch happen in the first place? What causes the body to begin sending these signals before you're even aware of them? And once researchers started investigating that question, they uncovered something that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. If you've experienced these sensations, the first thing to understand is that you're not alone. Millions of people notice similar patterns night after night. The pressure, the repositioning, the unexplained awareness, the feeling that sleep should be easier than it actually is. Yet many quietly assume something is wrong with them, when in reality, the situation may be very different from what they've been told. What if these sensations are not signs of failure? What if your body isn't working against you at all? Think about how many protective systems exist throughout the body. Pain serves a purpose. Hunger serves a purpose. Even discomfort often exists to attract attention to something important. The body rarely creates responses without a reason, and nighttime reactions may follow that same principle. In many cases, the discomfort itself may be part of an internal correction process. The urge to move, the need to reposition, the awareness that suddenly appears after lying down. All of these responses may be attempts to restore balance, attempts to improve alignment, attempts to help the body adapt to conditions it perceives as less than ideal, a perspective that completely changes how many people view their sleep struggles. This is why blaming yourself rarely leads to answers. It's not necessarily a matter of willpower. It's not necessarily a matter of discipline, and it certainly isn't always a natural consequence of aging. Many people spend years believing they simply need to try harder, sleep earlier, relax more, worry less, without realizing a deeper process may already be influencing everything they're experiencing. Once you begin looking at these sensations differently, a surprising pattern emerges. The pressure starts making more sense. The repositioning starts making more sense. Even the body flip signal begins to look less like a problem and more like a response that may have a purpose, a response that may be attempting to guide the body toward a better state of balance, and that realization alone can completely change the way these experiences are interpreted. But perhaps the most important discovery is this: a night mismatch doesn't necessarily begin where most people assume it does. The sleeping position may not be the true starting point. The discomfort may not be the true starting point. Even the body flip signal itself may simply be reacting to something deeper, something that quietly develops before you ever lie down. And what researchers have uncovered about that hidden trigger is not what most people think.